All right, let's talk some defensive tackles. Why don't we? Top seven defensive tackles. Honorable mention, Jonathan Allen, nearly put him on the list. He was a top seven tackle last year, but just I feel like over the course of his career has not been as consistent as as the other seven guys. And also his run defense isn't quite as good as his pass rush is. But honorable mention, he deserves to be mentioned. That being said, let's get into the top seven list. My top seven. I'm saying defensive tackles. Really, I mean interior defensive linemen in general. Number 7, Kenny Clark, who's very good for the Green Bay Packers. Sort of a nose, really known as a nose tackle, but can play other techniques as well. The number you see to the right of his name, the 8 there, I'm going to put everyone's PFF grade also on this list. So PFF grade from last season, so he was the 8th graded PFF player among players who had at least 50% snaps, and he's just very good. Again, really helps out in the run defense, which that's always the interesting discussion when you're making a list like this, is how much do you care about run defense, how much do you care about pass rush? Really, you obviously care about both, but I definitely very much value run defense highly, and I mean, he can do both. He can rush the passer from the inside very well, so he's someone who can do it all, and that's what I like about him. Number 6, I am going Vita Vea here, him and Kenny Clark kind of get some, comparisons. Some people saying who's better between Vita Vea and Kenny Clark. I am going Vita Vea. I'm giving him the slight edge, even though PFF gave Clark the slight edge, at least last season. I think one of the things that Vea does just so well is, again, he's just a huge guy. Like you can't one-on-one block him, especially not with a center, which makes things difficult when he lines up against the center. What are you going to do in this situation? If you leave him one-on-one, well, then you're screwed. He's going to create pressure. But if you double team him, well, now he's winning because he takes down an extra guy, and that's a win for a defensive tackle if you can take on a double team just by itself. Very tough to move in the running game. The running game is where people notice him because he is that big, run-stuffing nose tackle, but he can do more than that. He can set things up in the pass rush game, even if it's not him specifically getting the pressures and getting the sacks. The reason why he's not top 5 is probably because he's not the guy who's actually getting the pressures and getting the sacks. I said saps, must be a, Freudian slip talking about a defensive tackle for the Buccaneers. But not getting the sacks necessarily, which is why I had 5 guys ahead of him. But he's still very good. And in terms of like pure disruptors, might be just the best pure disruptor in the league, him or Kenny Clark, who I put at number 7. Number 5, give me Jeffrey Simmons at number 5. Again, guy who, he can rush the passer, certainly. He will get some pressures. I actually made a film study on Jeffrey Simmons a little bit ago. And he is one of those guys who can just constantly get pressure from the inside, and he does it with really good effectiveness. So because of that, I think that he belongs on this list. And I also think that, Titans fans, close your ears. I think that some of the pass rush guys around the Titans were not that great. I think Simmons kind of created a lot of that and allowed a lot of that to happen, and the coverage helps out a lot because it all works together. But that's kind of my, my main thing about Simmons as well is, yes, 14th in PFF grade. That is lower than the other 2 guys. That is fair to say. But I think that he maybe was overperforming his situation. And, as much as PFF does their best to take out situational stuff, it still comes into play. So for Jeffrey Simmons, definitely someone who I'm a big fan of. He belongs on this list. For number 4, I am going Grady Jarrett here, Grady Jarrett is definitely one of those guys who I think is just, fantastic. You might notice, wait a second, 23rd ranked PFF guy. How can you put him number 4? That doesn't make sense. That seems way lower. Because he plays for the Falcons. That's why he's on a horrible defensive line. The fact that he's getting any pressures throughout the entire season is incredible, given what poor Grady Jarrett has had as teammates these past few years. He hasn't had any help around him, and so he has to make everything happen on his own. He makes a lot happen. The guy's really good. Again, his numbers aren't going to be as impressive as someone else. His numbers aren't as impressive as Jeffrey Simmons are, but Grady Jarrett is in a much worse situation, and it's him and A.J. Terrell. That's what the Falcons have. So your numbers aren't going to look as good in that situation, but he does so much for that football team. He can pass the rush very well. He can stop the run very well. Definitely someone who, hopefully the Falcons can get sort of some help around him, and they have done some stuff this offseason to hopefully help with that, and we'll see how it goes. Number 3, I am going with Chris Jones, and yes, Andy Reid in the Kansas City Chiefs. Chris Jones is a defensive tackle. He's an interior defensive lineman, not an edge rusher. That was one of the weirder experiments I think we've seen. I didn't hate the idea at the time, but like in hindsight, what were they thinking? Like, you know, it is one of those. I mean, I don't hate trying it. I hated how long they tried it for. They should have given up on it very quickly because, like, yeah, you have one of the best interior defensive linemen. Why are you trying to make him an edge rusher? Just let him do what he does great, which, I mean, he can rush the passer as good as it, you know, not as good as anybody. There's definitely one guy who could do it better than him, but up there with anybody in terms of just being able to rush the passer from the inside. I think he can stop the run well. I think that's underrated with his game, but he's someone who absolutely can get a ton of pressure from the inside. This is a guy who has had 15.5 sacks in a season. And in fairness, some of that was as an edge because he won't just play defensive tackle for all of his snaps, but, you know, he'll play them for most of them. And, you know, pushing him outside here and there is that's fine. I have no issue with that. That tends to work. It's just more so just trying to make him a pure edge rusher made no sense. Fantastic defensive tackle and gets a ton of pressure from the inside. Number 2, give me the great Patriots interior defensive lineman, Cameron Heyward, who might be the best pure run defender on this list. Maybe. I mean, I guess that, like, is Vita Vea a better run defender than Heyward? You can make an argument for, but what Heyward does is just incredible. As you see, second best PFF grade on top of this, and definitely plays in a good situation, definitely has help around him. But part of why that situation is good is because of what he can do. Because, you know, part of what makes TJ Watt so effective is because of the dirty work that Cameron Heyward is doing on the inside. And also, TJ Watt's incredible. That also helps. So for the Steelers, they have my top-ranked edge rusher and my second-ranked defensive tackle. In some eras, he would have a chance to be the top-ranked defensive tackle in football. It's not even a question, though. It just isn't. He is not the best defensive tackle in football. There's one guy who's obviously better. Number 1, of course, it's Aaron Donald. Of course, it's Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald is the best defensive tackle in football. Again, I keep saying defensive tackle. Best interior defensive lineman in football. And it's not even close. Again, guy's got over 20 sacks in a season before. This is someone who's been unbelievable and is one of the best pass rushers in football, and he plays on the inside. And his run defense is, I mean, like I said, you know, Cameron Heyward's run defense, I raved all about that. I don't know if he's better than Aaron Donald. He probably is a little, but it's not a huge jump. Aaron Donald is not someone you want to run the football against. He can definitely, you know, make a play and stop things. Aaron Donald is one of the best to ever do it at any position, in any sport for that matter. I mean, he's unbelievable. And you could certainly make the argument that every year Aaron Donald has played, he's deserved Defensive Player of the Year. And it's not a bad argument. Like, he probably does. He's that dominant. Everything that he does, you have to put 2 guys on him, and he'll still get pressure with 2 guys on him. Put a third on him, I'm sure he'll still get pressure on you. He's one of one. He is, you know, the best player in football. I think it's, you know, again, take out positional value. He's the best player in football. That's what I think. So yeah, what do you guys think? I know you will not be shy in letting me know your opinion on why I'm stupid and where I screwed up, and that is the fun of all of this. So definitely let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.